Hello, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is O. Horvath. I'm here representing the Prince George's County Memorial Library System. This is my esteemed friend and colleague, Kyla Hannington, who is here representing the Prince George's County Office of Human Rights, and we are thrilled to have with us amazing poet, writer, essayist, and repeat esteemed guest of the PGCMLS virtual events world, Kendra Allen, who will be here talking about her new collection, The Collection Plate, and reading us some poems as well. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us, Kendra. And without further ado, I'll pop off here and you and Kyla can begin your discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, O. Thank you, library. And thank you, Kendra, for being with us again.
Thank you, Kyla, for having me.
I have been looking forward to this for like 8 months. Has it been 8 months?
It's been a long time because it's been like on my calendar at least all of this year.
Yeah, I've been like, Kendra's coming. So I'm so thrilled that you made the time to join us again. And I love this collection so much. And I'm hoping that people watching have had a chance to look at it and read it. But if they haven't, I also know that you're going to introduce them to some poems. And so I'm wondering, would you mind reading a couple for us just to start us off?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to read 2 poems from the collection. I got it out of the cover, but it looks like this. I'm going to read the opening poem, which is called Evening Service. And fun fact, I read this the first time I was here in its rough draft state. So it's like super exciting to be able to read it again and like kickstart the conversation in the book. So I'll start by, sorry, I don't know what's going on. I'll start by reading that and I'll read one more.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay. Evening service. When it's time for the invitation, we say, Our Father. Today is a... Wait, what is happening? Do you hear the rumble in the throat? Let me drink some water. Sorry.
This is live theater.
Exactly. Okay. When it's time for the invitation, we say, Our Father. Today is a blessed one. Walk to the front of the altar in my pretty printed please you dress, socks with the ruffles at the ankle ready to give this life over or never see eternity. I sit in the chair and the pastor thanks Mama for her persuasion. The pastor is our uncle and our uncle tells me in 2 weeks I'ma be saved. In 2 weeks, this a renewed discipline, but still he's so stingy. This impatience for assurance leads me back. They get me ready and my come let us adore him. Mama tell me to take off my panties. She forgot to bring extra types of loss. At set time, I walk out from behind. The choir stands, the curtains open, the people scream. There's dead water bugs wrapped around falling leaves from no sky. In the tub I'm in, my uncle recites a scripture so it don't look like we live here for the good show. I watch them congregate over the sinning as water rushes down the amen. My feet panicked because they can't touch an end. I envision modeled men, his hand holding nostrils, my mouth miracled. If I could sing, this wouldn't be loveless. If I could swim, I wouldn't die. The pastor is our uncle, and our uncle holds me under at a distance. The pastor is our uncle, and our uncle divests me of my volition. Back on land, I drip, I dribble, I cough up who I should have been. The people clap at how clean, how quickly my design has ripped their wants. An encore for me to swallow it better, hold it all in longer, say sorry for wasting my first 8 years of life. Okay, and so I want to read one more. And it is called The Super Sadness Feels Like Anger, which feels like. And something about this poem is it's a list poem, but it also started out being about the invention of the super soaker. And I don't like writing about other people. It's like so hard for me to do. And so I kind of just switched everything around and switched the super soaker to the super sadness because, you know, that's just me. If you know me, I'm gonna find a way to bring the drama. Okay. The super sadness feels like anger, which feels like foreskin, a default setting, stomach churns after midnight, dry eyes, Sunday morning worship, hesitation at an intersection, changed passwords, premature adulthood, missed deadlines, fitted sheets, freelancing, yes, maybe, momentum, ashy knuckles, hypervigilance, corn stuff stuck in between my gap, a sucked in stomach, sinking, infantile embroidery, showtime, the next step, primary colors, my pocketbook, learned behaviors, an exit, intermediate hand gripping, when my grandmother was supposed to turn 100 yesterday, but forgot all them years ago, resolution, yardsticks, small talk, an incubator, groupthink, a Ferris wheel, melodrama, accidentally swallowing water at the bottom of a 3-foot pool, meaning to swallow water at the bottom of a 3-foot pool, not drowning, sex sometimes, compulsive eating, a fed family, liquidated compensation, weakened breaths after walking up a flight of steps, a glitch, controlled air conditioning, method acting, a book release party, crashing, an accessory, writing what I do and wishing I felt better, staying together, I'll air all this shit out, thighs chafing, losing my life, gnats in the kitchen, cotton candy, the end of throwaway, 6:35 headed to Mesquite, light voices, black exploitation, and isolation, everything, hyphenated, promotion, an expiration date, my idle and morning state, an organization, getting to know you, room temperature water, and the sun is out, a fan blowing hot air, what I've always wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, your words are so amazing, and it was great to hear them, and to hear Evening Service, which I had heard you read before, but it's funny, you know, I heard you read it one time, you know, 9-10 months ago, and then when I read the collection, I was so familiar. Like the power of your voice and the way that it just sticks with you is incredible. So thank you. And can we start with that? Because I think it fits with the theme. So you've got the title is The Collection Plate, and you start with Evening Service, and I think that gets at some of the themes in the collection. And so maybe can you talk about the collection theme, or like what you were hoping for as it came together?
Yeah, I think I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with like my throat box at the moment. But I think when I moved Evening Service from the back of the collection to the front of it, I started to frame every other poem around that. And like that idea of like baptism and like rebirth sort of like stuck in my mind. And of course, water as a metaphor. And I just sort of like wrote around the idea of like being 8 years old and like being in this church and like being so deep into the church at such a young age, and like using the rest of the collection to sort of like crawl out of that that conditioning. So like I wanted the poems to sort of like start here, like this is where I began, but also like I end the poem by saying like wasted my first 8 years of life.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Yeah,
go ahead. Oh, you told me to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead. Just that, like the power of that feeling, and which resonated. Like I could connect with that feeling so like the little, actually not even like little, also 47-year-old Kyla, but like little Kyla also, like that kind of feeling of just like the shame for selfness, like that, like, you know, that is a feeling that is probably, I'm not gonna say it's universal, but it's certainly connected for me. And then also the reader, when you're not like thinking about yourself and you're like, who is this little precious 8-year-old that feels so wrong.
Yeah, what did I do that I need to be absolved of sin? Because when you really think about it, like any sin I made, y'all made me do it as adults. So it's kind of like your sin. And so like just that idea, you said the right word, like shame. So you're telling me like the first 8 years of my life is void and like don't count because I'm like saved now. So what does that really say about like the ideology I had about myself, or like the assuredness that I had about myself? I think like kids most times get it right about what they like and who they are very early on, and it's everyone around them that sort of like strips that away from them. And so yeah, like that poem is like super important and like fundamental to like that undoing and like unlearning that I hope I'm like getting at throughout like the rest of the collection.
Well, I mean, one of the things that resonated through it, and I think to answer your question about, or that you hope that it resonated throughout, it's like this strength, right? Like the strong, the strength that is throughout it. And so there's anger and frustration, but through that, I mean, I'm also getting this sense of self. And the I don't want to say the freedom to be oneself, because I think it's hard fought, but it's free. I don't know. I think freedom seems too simple of a word. How are you experiencing it?
I would say freedom is it, because like freedom is like all I really try to accomplish when I do right and when I live in general. Like freedom is that word that's always on my mind. I'm always feel like I'm reaching toward it. So I would say that's like absolutely correct. Even though like through that like suppression, like it's still me like fighting to get free. Like I'm coming up out the water, supposedly brand new, and it's a freedom in new beginnings. It's a freedom in endings. And I just wanted to but also like the idea of like family and chosen family, but also like family that you're born into, because my uncle was our pastor. So that's like another level of like you can't be free in these spaces because you're being watched.
Right.
But also
all the time.
Yeah, but also like that like internal need and like grasp to just be myself. Like I never strayed from that. Even as a kid, like I always was just like, you're gonna let me say what I want to say, and you're gonna let me be who I want to be. And like I can play the game just a little bit, but it's always gonna be like me rebelling to a certain extent if I feel stifled in any way. And it's like stifling to be underwater, and it's stifling to try to get your grip underwater, and it's stifling to like not have grip on land, let alone in like this tub, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, and that's like, so throughout the collection there was also the imagery of water. So there's birth and rebirth, and all of the ways in which water shapes us or as a transformational element. And so did that come for you? Was that again through the baptism imagery?
No, like that transformational thing. I should also like just mention that I'm not thinking about any of these things as I'm writing poems, or like as I'm writing in general. Like I'm not thinking, oh, this is a poem about like how I transformed, or like this is a poem about how like I was reborn, or like this is a poem. I'm really like hindsight 100%. And I mean by hindsight, like the book is out and I'm looking at it like, oh, this is what I was really thinking, and this is what I was really meaning, and this is what I was really feeling. And I think I'm trying to get to the point where I can do that in the midst of writing, but like during it, I wasn't thinking like this is like transformative, or this is like new, or like this is like a rebirth. I only thought that like maybe a month ago, or like a month or two ago. So like when I'm in it, I'm thinking this was crazy. Like, why was I doing this? Like, it's more of that. It's more of like just getting it out on the page of like, I can't believe that like I was so excited to get baptized at 8. Or like, I can't believe like I see children swim today and I'm like, Kendra, why you still can't swim like this? Or like, it's just like these little moments in my life and in my childhood that I want to document. And then only in hindsight am I able to be like, oh, this is a pivotal moment in your life where you like transformed, or this is like a pivotal moment in your life that like is embedded in your memory forever, because that's the moment where you felt shame, or like that's the moment where you felt like you felt depression for the first time, or this is the moment where like you felt grief for the first time. Like I think those were like my great grandmother poems, because like when it happened, I wasn't thinking I was grieving. Like I cried, but it wasn't like, oh, like you really like had these downloads of like who you are as a human, but also who you are in the lineage of like this Southern Black family, and like the traditions of them. And so yeah, I know like it's transformative, but it takes me a minute to like connect to like that actuality. Like I'm a very slow I'm not a very slow person to realize things, but I'm a very, very slow person to acknowledge like how those realizations like affect me in a long-term sense.
Right. Yeah. Right. Have you ever had it, when you're like doing a workshop where someone's read one of your poems or one of your essays and they're like that they got something out of it and that you did not realize was there, but then when it's been pointed out to you, like, oh, that is 100% absolutely there.
Yeah, all the time. I be like when you hear it, you'll say in your head, like, that's not what I'm trying to do, but that sound better. So I'm gonna like agree. Yeah. I'm gonna let you have it. But also writing is subjective like that. Like that's the best part about it, especially poetry. I think like a lot of people assume poetry is always like nonfiction to a certain extent, or like autobiographical to a certain extent. And I think for me, if anything, poetry has been a way for me to combine like the imaginative and like the just like the fiction with the actuality of like my actual life. It's a easier genre for me to like access who I want to be and who I actually am, versus like writing creative nonfiction. I can do that as well, but it's not. It just don't hit the same, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as someone who was introduced to you through your creative nonfiction, I think your creative nonfiction is unbelievable. So amazing. I mean, really. Oh, I should have had out my handy prop to hold up to the camera. Oh, it's right here. Handy prop. For everybody at home, if you have not read this book yet, oh my gosh, When You Learn the Alphabet. So amazing. So amazing. But it really, I mean, but I will say, like, I did want to ask about this. So you have this. Actually, I have so many questions. Let me try and bring it down. Okay. How did you go? So you're switching genres and just doing incredibly impactful work in both. So you've got this collection of essays out. How did it come that you're okay? I'm now going to work in poetry. How did that come for you?
It really came because I couldn't write an essay. Like I was very like in a very deep depression. That's the word for it. I don't know why I be laughing when I say that, but I be laughing through everything. But I was like in a very like just bad state. I was having like a very, very rough year, and I couldn't really write any essays because it was too much. Like it was already a lot just to wake up and like thinking about writing a large long form essay. It just wasn't finna happen. And so I was like in partaking in weed and alcohol and things like that daily. Not much more so alcohol, more so like weed, like every day. And I would just be like super high and like not really doing anything. And I was in grad school at the time, and I would counsel like all my classes. Like I counsel, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, I counsel like my class for the rest of the semester. I'm done. Yeah, it was like that semester. I was like, look, we ain't gotta go meet up in class. Like y'all have a good life. And because I just couldn't do it. And so I would just be sitting down. And this is also around the time When You Learn the Alphabet came out, and I was just dealing with a lot. But I didn't know how to deal with it, and that's why I was just getting high every day. And I was listening to a song called Nobody by Janae Aiko, and like in this song, she just writes so well. She's always been like a writer I look to like help me write. And so I was listening to this song drunk, and she was saying I don't need nobody fucking up my chakras again. My father is a doctor. I've been talking to him. All the shit I'm taking could have got it from him. I don't have no patience. Probably got it from him, just a product of him. And so I just said all that for no reason. But I just love, like, she just be killing it. But also I was thinking about that, and I was drinking out of like a bottle of Andre, and I just wrote the title like Andre Ain't Nobody, and I just started writing like those Our Father poems. It was like one large poem, and then I eventually like broke it down to like 6 or 7 like smaller, very, very short poems. But it was one large mediocre poem at first, and it was just me like getting out all my feelings about everything that I was thinking at the moment. And I wrote that down. I was already writing poetry for a class I was taking, which was a documentary poetics course. And that's why I was talking about I was writing super soaker poems. But then I sort of like shifted that topic to myself. And when I wrote Andre Ain't Nobody, I just started to it just started like coming together. Like I wrote that and I was like, okay, I can just keep writing. Like this feels right. Like I feel like I'm supposed to be writing poetry at this point in my life, because it was like, it was just peaceful. Like I felt very, very peaceful. I didn't feel stressed the way I do when I was writing essays at that time. Like it would stress me out so much that I couldn't get anything done. But when I started like writing these poems, it was just like a calm feeling of like you sitting at the water, like on a beach or something. It was like that. But even though my mind was like doing cartwheels and backflips, like my body was just like very, very calm. Yeah. That was a long answer.
No, but it's so interesting. And I think, I wonder for you, and I was wondering about this. I mean, I was like, oh, again, I have a million questions. I'm going to try and like sort them, like do one and then another one. Okay. But, so my understanding, I'm going to take you through my understanding of things.
Okay.
So you are from Dallas, you go to Alabama, you're doing your MFA, you're early in your MFA, you see a contest and you're like, Casey Lehman is judging this. Oh my gosh, I'm going to print everything out and I'm going to send it in. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Which, by the way, I borrowed that. I was like, I'm going to do the same thing. Roxane Gay was like doing it. And I'm like, I printed everything out, but she didn't get the memo that she was supposed to like award me the book. So I'll be writing her about that. But
that
anyway,
means you're going to get it even bigger.
Right. Okay. So, but I was like, that was what inspired. It's a very inspirational story though. So everybody at home who's like, I want to write things, or I have written things down and I want to do something with them, look for those contests, but people that you love are judging, and give them your work. It's awesome. So Kendra, so you get this, and this book comes out, and then like, I'm just wondering, like, how is, because my son, and I saw like Casey Lehman interviewed about this book, Jason Reynolds interviews about this book, like, so you've had this kind of like huge trajectory, and how is that? Is that like overwhelming? What's happening?
I don't feel that. So I would say, I mean, like I'm absolutely like in a different place mentally, and I'm absolutely like super, super grateful of like people who are reading my work now, like 100%. That's true. But yeah. I would say like I don't really feel, I don't really see it like that, and I think like I'm learning that now, like to be proud of myself, because I'm not generally that type of person where like I was proud when I finished the book. And I am like, this is probably like the first thing I've written that I'm like still proud of. Whereas everything else I've ever written, I'm proud for like a little bit. And then I'm just like, okay, what's next? I got to go work on something else. Or I got to go finish something else. And this is probably the first time that I've had, I've like seen my work and just been like, okay, yes. Like, it's good, Kendra. Like, it's good. Like, say it's good. Like, I be having to bully myself to do that. And so I think, like, when people see me talking to, like, other writers, I love these writers, too. And so, like, in my mind, I'm just like, what's going on? But, like, also, like, it's like, I just don't see it like that. That's the best way I can explain it. I don't see myself like that. I'm not saying anybody else sees me like that, but I know like the perception is that like I'm like doing well, but that's not always true. Right. And so I think for me, like the biggest feat of like everything that's happening right now is that I'm actually in the space mentally where I can say like I'm at peace with who I am. I'm at peace with what I bring to like writing. I'm at peace with my talent. I'm at peace with my mind. I'm kind of like just not like I'm not in that place I was. So like I'm just like that's the that's the payoff and that's the accomplishment for me, that I can be here and just be like, you know, I liked my book. Like, because I didn't feel like that. I didn't have that experience that first time where like people were saying it's like good and I love this book, because in my head I'm like, this could be better, number one. And number two, I was just going through the ringer, like dealing with the outcome of this book. And so I think now it's like, it's wild to just see the trajectory of who I am as a person, more than like what I do for like, like what I do for like myself, or like what I do as like a job. So I'm just like very proud of myself as a person, and that trajectory for me like supersedes whatever, because it was a moment where I thought like I would never like feel proud of myself, or I would like nothing would ever be enough for me to be like, oh, like I'm deserving, or like, oh, I'm worthy, because I thought I had to like practically die to be deserving of good things. So now I'm just at a point where like, yeah, you deserve everything. Like you lack nothing. So like that mindset is the thing that like really I'm super, super, super proud of.
Yeah, I mean, and that is incredible transformation. You know, and you talk about, you talked about tonight, like being in a state of depression. And so I think it's difficult, you know, your collection starts, again, we talked about the you know, 8-year-old having to apologize for basically having to, you know, how do you go from having to apologize for your existence and like make up for your very existence to then be able to be like, no, I'm pleased with what I did. That's a huge step.
It's wild, but it's like your whole life. It's your whole life of unlearning like all the shit that like you've been conditioned to believe, and like you've seen other people like go through. Like it's just a whole entire lifetime of work.
I'm wondering, like in the collection, so we talked about this as in When You Learn the Alphabet too, and so you have a theme with your dad, or with our father, so you have like the church father, and then fathers. So, and I know that's, as I said, it was in your essay collection, and it was one of the things that, you know, I really appreciated and, you know, resonated with in a heartbreaking way, as we talked about, you know. Can you take us through again, for people who haven't read this yet, like, you know, what's the study on fathers that you have?
Like plain and simple, it's like our father is a representative of like this male worshiping society that we live in, particularly like in my personal life, like this Black male worship society that I exist in, but also like this, I've also always been a very like direct and like blunt person, especially with men in my life, and I know that they don't respond to that as well, and I'm thinking about like when I started writing those Our Father poems, I had like a very, very dear professor tell me that I needed to put those poems in somebody's mouth, and I didn't have like that word Our Father, and I just wrote it. Like I was just like I wrote an evening service, we say Our Father. And when I wrote that, that became a character. Like it's not even just about like my literal father. It's about like a God that I've been taught about, who is always a he, it's always a male, it's never ever a she, a they, it's never anything but just like the man. And I always been a person. This is bad. I hate systems in general, but I've always been like fighting against any kind of system. And patriarchy is a system that like has always been at the forefront of my brain, of something that I need to dismantle in my own life, whether that's like internalized misogyny, or whether that's like just like taking men off the pedestal. Like that's so hard because we're born into like patriarchy. Patriarchy is everywhere. It's in our schools, it's in our churches, it's in our homes, it's like every single place that we go. And so me writing about Our Father in these different poems was just my contribution to try to like kill it, if that makes sense. Not like you die and I hate you, but like just kill the concept of Also, like envy. I think with more than like just killing the concept, I had to kill my envy of men in general. Like I get very, very jealous and annoyed and like grossed out by my, like when I see men like be so like they say something they think it's like so smart and like you better listen. Like I get angry because I'm like, who are you to think that like what you just said people just have to fall in line, and it's an arrogance with that. And so like I have to think about like where does that jealousy in me stems from, that I'm not able to do that, because it really is jealousy. And I see it and I learned that in church. Like I would see men sort of like walk around and like direct and like I tell my mama all the time, like all Black pastors be doing is like telling women what they need to be doing. Like that's all they do on this like stand. And so I always been very aware and like very cognizant that like I cannot be the one. Like I'm not the one, I'm not the two. Like you can't be telling me what to do. You won't be telling me what to do. And a lot of times I internalize that misogyny and start acting like them. And so like me writing about our father is me really like trying to like point out the problem, but also the problem in myself of how I'm contributing to it. That's how I got poems like I come to you as humbly as I know how, when I say like we must absolve when I say most mothers of sons must go, because we enable the patriarchy. It's not our fault, but like we enable it a lot because like it's a fear in our society of like men not desiring you, or men not liking you, or men thinking like you a bitch, or like men just like looking at you as something other than like a beautiful, desirable woman. And it's just like, that's not life. Like that's not life, because human condition is human. Yes.
How many people, I mean, how many girls have been raised and have heard, no man's going to love you if you do X, or if you don't do Y, or if you don't look a certain way.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard that my daughter, someone came up to one of my children and said that, well, I won't say it, actually. It was really awful. It was really awful. But it was like that kind of thing, that like the single most important pinnacle of being a woman is to have some guy like you.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets passed on, and it is bizarre. And yet I think, as you say, we absorb that kind of messaging constantly.
And even if you don't hear it directly to you, you see it. It's every single place. Like from as soon as you watch TV, you see this. Like you see the guy see the girl, and it's in slow motion. It's like, oh my God, she's flawless. There's nothing wrong with her. Like it's a pedestal on like both ends of the spectrum. Like the pedestal of like being desired, and also the pedestal of being a man, like in this society. And it's hard to like you can't balance it, because both of these things will fail. Like it's not gonna serve you in the long run.
How do you like inside yourself like chip away, at like the presumed authority that you're talking about, this presumed authority that men have? Well, we grow up in it, you experience it, and you talk about growing up in the Black church and seeing that specifically there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find yourself automatically kind of like ceding authority, not necessarily your own, but like maybe just assuming that if it's a man talking, he maybe knows what he's talking about? Like you just like assume knowledge. You catch that in yourself?
That's what I mean by like that internalized. Yeah. I think for me, the biggest place that I see it is in my influences, like in my creative influences. And I had to like check myself on that. Like if people ask me like, who are you influenced by? It's a whole list of men that I like just go down. And I had to look at myself like, Kendra, like this ain't even all the way true. Like, and what is it about you that like makes you look towards these men? Like I said, it's jealousy, because I know I could never ever, like I can be 30 times better, but it would never like resonate and would never like go over the same, because I don't fit, like I don't identify as like male in this society. And so I think I always like, that's the clear place that I see it. I know like music influences, writing influences, things like that. It's always like men, and I have to be like, that's not always true. Like you do love like other people besides like these random dudes. But also I also been a person who I think fortunately and unfortunately, like I had a father who like have misogynistic tendencies. Like it just is what it is. And so I grew up like just hearing stuff that he would say, or like hearing stuff my cousins would say, and I just be like, no, like no. And I will always be the one who will speak up. And I know like it takes a lot of courage to like keep speaking up. Like you can do it, but like just to keep incessantly doing it. And I could see like the more that I do it, the more that they look at me like I'm like I hate men. Like I get that, and I get you are you like aggressive, or like you always got a problem, or like it's not that deep. And I'm just like, I could literally die because of your ideologies right here. And so I've never been afraid to like speak up, and I don't know where that comes from. Probably the women in my family, which is why I'm saying like I say I'm influenced by this, but it's really just being around women who would like. I had aunties who like would fight men, like literally like fight men, and like not be scared of them. And I think if I didn't see women who were not fearful of like these patriarchal structures, then I probably would have been it would have been harder for me to break out of that. But I always saw them, and I always learned through them of what I would accept and what I wouldn't accept. And I'm never even talking about like romantically. I'm saying like just as a person, like you not finna talk to me a certain way because you see me a certain way. Like you're gonna talk to me how I tell you to talk to me, or like we just won't be in the same vicinity. Yeah.
Right. So you have, I mean, I am not sure if I wrote this one down. I think I did. I have so many poems. Okay. Happy 100th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Can we, because as we're talking about women, and can we read that?
Yes. I don't even think I read this poem before. Okay. What page is on? Okay. I found it. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. This is a poem for my great grandmother, who is like the oldest person I've ever known. She died in her 90s. And it's about like just going to see her gravesite on her 100th birthday with like my granny and my mama and uncle and things like that, which we never did. Like that was my first time going. It was just weird to like see like she would have been 100 today. So this is a poem about that. Happy 100th birthday. This is my first time at your headstone, and I keep remembering the day the laws came to pick me up from the steps. I told them to take me to you, dip them into back streets to get to the back of Has out front. It's nighttime, you been asleep, and cops at your door ain't an indication to wake up. They came in, you told them bye. You let me sit in the dark to cry heavy, to call on our Father. I'm sure I forgot this was a kind of home too. I'm sure I forgot this was a kind of home too, as I wipe mud out of your plot's large intestines, like I'm planning a recall in your back and you remember one of our names and you'd become a baby doll, recharging. If I dug your grave, this is what I'd look like, stepping on so many bodies to get to yours, just to find out you happy. To find out you happy, I barely realized I could miss you. And the sweet Georgia brown plates packed with mac, cabbage, and other smothered things. We like to suffocate that way and suffer that way. That's why we like to stand in that line on Sundays. And that's why they put you in a nursing home, let the juice spill down your chin. And that's why they let you die when you couldn't even say nothing back. All your history in adult diapers, all your history in rooms with none of you in it, all your histories in rooms with none of you in it. And I go back to revisit it, acknowledge our fabric. It was a suggestion, but I need you again to write. I'm sorry nothing comes before that need to remember everything. The house is now refurbished, remodeled, better. All the words we wanted for your brain. All your stuff sold, and for what? A vacation. The yellow gone. Everything in the garage gone. The chair gone. And I can see it all from the window of my car, the failure. At least I'm honest about the things I care about. I'm honest about the things I care about. I don't feel nothing sitting out front. Don't even see you sitting in the recliner or salved. You own something and then they seized you. You had the biggest backyard surrounded by wire, clotheslined our courtship. Now there's a fence bordered around it. Someone preserved and took care of what we couldn't. Not that you would care, because you dead and painless. Hopefully memory is keeping you up at night now. I just wanted to make sure you still the oldest person I know. Thank you.
Thank you. So talk to me about this poem.
Yeah. Okay, so my great grandmother, she died of Alzheimer's. And I think why I probably work very, very hard is that I'm like very fearful of forgetting my life. Mm-hmm. And like in fear of like this could catch up to me, you know, it's generational, skip generations. And so I'm just like very, very scared of like forgetting, because I saw how I was the closest great grandchild to her, but not that we were close. I was just at her house more than all the other great grandchildren. And so I think like when I saw her losing her memory, just like the fear that will be on her face of her not knowing who her kids are, her not knowing who her grandkids are, and how I saw it just like slowly decline, like when she went to the nursing home, and how it just happened like very, very quick. I think I wanted to write this poem because even like with seeing that, it was more so like how our family reacted to it, and how it kind of like shifted everything, and how it sort of stopped being about her and started like being about other things that didn't really matter, like her house or like her things or like things like that. And nobody really knew how to handle like loss, like that loss. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to write about it like from like I said, hindsight. Like when it was happening, I was sad for like the day it happened, but I was over it after. Not over it, but like it was just like people die. I know that. And so I just wanted to write about how I felt about it, and like my memory of her, and the things I remembered about her being at her house growing up. And that's just why I wanted to write it. And I feel like 100 is significant because like a lot of people don't even make it to the 90s. And so like just the idea of like her turning 100 and like her still being in some part of all of us, I just wanted to write about that. Yeah.
I read something somewhere. I mean, you know, I know you can trust everything that you read on the internet. So okay.
All the time. Twitter too.
Yeah. Okay. So I definitely got it from a reliable source like Facebook. Okay. But it was a meme. And it was like you were inside your mother and your grandmother at the same time, because you're like an egg inside your mom when your mom is in the womb. Mm-hmm. So this was like this thing. It was like talking about the connection between women throughout the generations. And I had really never thought about that. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit. But you're talking about it just
even like I should have mentioned like she was also the first woman I saw be unapologetically mean. Like she was mean and she did not care how you felt about it. And I'm like super grateful that I saw a woman like just say wild stuff in public. Like just that would be
that,
yes.
That would be something. I'm going to say really quick, if anybody's listening, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're watching, and we will make sure that Kendra gets them in the next little while. So please drop in your questions. No, that would be amazing. So I think, like, so I'm a woman, I'm Canadian, which is a whole nother level. The idea that that a woman could be unapologetically mean is just like to just be unapologetic, just to say, like, to not care what people think. That must have been incredibly empowering and also like bizarre, probably. You know, for like, did it kind of throw you off your game at first, or did you just get used to like that's just who she was? Like,
I got both. At all times, like I would go over her house after school and like she would say so. I would be scared over there because I'm like, I can't do nothing because she gonna say something and I ain't trying to like have her talk to me crazy. So it would be both. Like it was very freeing to see her do it, but it was also like jarring because like my family, like everybody do say whatever, but like she was on another level with it of like, oh my God, like what is going on? And maybe it had to do with old age, because you know, when people get a certain age, they like forget it. I'm just gonna say what I want to say. But it was just like very like I'm super, super grateful that I saw it, because it made me realize like nothing will happen to me. Like I won't get in trouble, or like I won't, like you can't hurt me, like you, because I'm covered by like a lot of things, like I'm protected. And so when I saw her like just take that stand all the time, it really made me think that I can say whatever I want to say, and like you're not gonna do nothing to me, you're not gonna hurt me, you can't touch me, because a lot of my childhood was me scared that somebody was gonna touch me or like hurt me or like do something to me. And so yeah, I just think about like the stuff she say all the time.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sensitive to the time. I mean, we have 15 minutes, but
that was quick.
I know it's gone really quick, and there's so many themes that you touch on, you know. And we talked about some, you know, I know we talked about some poems before we went live, and I mean, so there's Naked and Afraid and Naked, which is probably lengthy to read, but we can talk about like maybe the themes, because I'm really seeing in here. You have racial justice. You have gender justice, gender equity, you have environmental justice, and you have economic justice, and all of the ways that they intersect. And with Naked and Afraid and Naked, these two poems side by side, I really felt that intersection of all of those things. So can we talk a little, I mean, I'd be happy for you to read them if you feel like you'd like to, or we could talk about those themes in the book.
Yeah, I'll talk about the themes. And it was, okay, so Naked and Afraid is like two poems that mirror each other. And one is about like the show Naked and Afraid, which is like a show where a lot of white people who think they're survivalists like go out into the jungle in Antarctica and like get naked for 30 days and try to survive. And then the other, and the poem that mirrors, it's a great show. Y'all should watch it. It's so entertaining, but like in the worst way, because it's like, this is dumb.
I just feel like I should say that I saw this show, not Naked and Afraid, but it's some other show where you like, some people were, I don't know, a bunch of white people in Canada, and they had to like survive with grizzly bears for like 30 days, and they had a camera, and they didn't have any camera crew that to film it themselves. And I was like, I could totally do that. So as you were like,
what is it? Like, I would never think I could do that. Okay. But yeah, so it's that poem, it's Naked and Afraid. Then Afraid and Naked is the poem that mirrors it, and it's about like the Flint water crisis. And I wrote Naked and Afraid first because I would always watch that show, and I would just be like, what is, like, I don't get it, like what's going on, like.
So it's a weird show, but like you can't turn away from it. Is it that kind of thing?
Okay. Yes, because they go and like they give their measurements, and like you get one partner, and like you get to pick one weapon your entire time there. But it's very important what you bring with you, because if you're like stuck in the desert, you need water. So you might want to bring a pot, because you need clean water, because you cannot drink the contaminated water. And they tell you this, and people don't listen, and they end up like having diarrhea on the show. It's embarrassing, millions of people watching. And the people who never bring pots, you see how immediately they are affected. Like they bring machetes or like things that they don't really need. you can see what people see as a need too, like as a right. And so like Afraid and Naked, the Flint water crisis, is me like just mirroring the exact same poem, but putting it in the context of like these people who are not given the human right of water, even though we have so much water to give them. It's like they're still without, and they're still without because they are Black, and they're still without because they are poor, and they're still without because nobody cares about poor Black people, let alone Black people in general, let alone Black children in general. And so we see like the way that they die, but then in juxtaposition to this show, we see them go without water, and like when things happen to them, like we see their body getting smaller, which is another like take on like fat phobia in society. Like we tell you that you need to be smaller, but like when you get smaller on this show, like we say like being smaller is better, and like we say these things, and then like when it happens, it's like it's death. It's like literally like near death. And so we see these white people on this show like without water, and they get helicoptered out of it to safety, and like they get saved. And then we also see like these actual real people who are dying, and because they like you don't care about them, they get left there, and for no reason other than because of how they look and what they make and things like that. And so I just really wanted to juxtapose the idea of like a reality show and a reality in general.
Yeah, it was,
yeah.
I was gonna say it's very powerful. Those two, that was great work. And I have to say again, for anybody watching, you can I strongly recommend getting both of Kendra's books, and you can get them from our friends at the library. You can get them from our friends at the library, even if you, well, let me make sure this is true. Even if you don't live in Prince George's County, you can definitely get a virtual library card. And you can also get them from our partner bookstore at Loyalty Books, which is a independent bookstore in DC and Maryland. Yeah. So yeah, well, do you want to read? What was I want to make sure I get the name right.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say White Women's Tears. I'm looking to get the title. But do you want to?
White Woman's Tears. Okay, yeah, I'll read it. I gotta find it too.
Oh, okay. I've got it on 49, but it's on the arc of 49.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same numbers.
It is. You know what? That's what the table of contents is for. I was really finna like go through.
Oh, you were flipping because I was flipping. Yeah.
I was flipping for no reason. Okay, it is on page 52. Okay. So this poem I'm gonna read now is called "I'm Tired of Your Ass Always Crying," and it's self-explanatory. And it's a fill in the blank poem, just so you can see. It's a multiple choice question. It's a test. But yeah. Okay. From mountaintops, they let stones fall on me, all to free the nipple. They cry wolf when they are wolves. Their tribe, puffy eyes. They cry when nothing hurts at all. Watch us perish. I don't know what I just said. It's like I was going to say Ursha. Watch us perish. They lie, then cry. They take, then cry. They offend, then cry. They lose, then cry from shame that they could ever lose. With those tears, never do they really mean wounded militia. They claim equality in my name by being treated better than all of us. For birthright, they are gifted a savior, and still they would cry if you care for me. And when you hear the sound, believe me, we must run. And the multiple choice is A for fun, A for sadness, A for safety, and A for the credit of their liberation. Thank y'all.
Thank you. I mean, it's great. And, we read with the library, our office and the library do a diversity dialogue series every month where we read different books and we talk about them. And last year we read a bunch of books that were specifically like diversity inclusion themed, like how to be an anti-racist. And we read white fragility. And I know that there are many mixed feelings about white fragility, and we'll just put a pin in that. But I think I froze. So hopefully you can hear me. Okay, good.
I can see you.
I waved my hand so energetically that my computer froze. It's like, calm down. But she had a chapter in there on, I think it's actually called White Women's Tears, and it was about the manipulation of a moment for a white woman's own comfort, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so when I saw this poem, I was like, oh, that is very familiar. What kind of, how was that for you? Like, what brought you to that point of that poem?
Yeah, I always known like white women be crying and getting people killed, history. But I think like when I wrote this poem, I was just like tired of this white girl who I was around at the moment, just like making nothing out of nothing, like making everything out of nothing. And I would just be looking at her like, bro, like, shut up, like, just shut up. And so like, I started writing it out of anger, but like the more that I started writing it, it was just like, I had to like come to a realization that like, it's very, very wild that like, knowing in my life, like if anybody like truly cares for me and openly cares for me, that it's always going to be a pushback of like, but me, like, but what about me? But like me over here, like I have issues too, or like I'm a woman too, or like this is happening to me too. But also just me wanting to just get it off my chest, because I don't think I'm saying nothing nobody ever said, but it's just like the idea of, I also had a student one time write an essay, and like I would never forget it. And she wrote in the essay, we were reading an essay about like racism, getting stopped by the police, and how like a white girl like started crying. And she wrote in her essay, I had to write a personal essay, and she was saying how like when she was young, her mom would tell her if she ever gets stopped by the police, just start crying. Or like if something happened to you that you don't want to like take accountability for, just start crying and they'll leave you alone. Or like you won't have to do it. Or like you won't have to like take accountability or like take onus of like whatever it is that you did. Just cry and somebody will forget about it. Like she wrote that, and like even though I knew that was happening, like because it had to be taught, I knew that was happening, but just like reading that and seeing it, I was just like damn, like it must be nice, number one. And two, like the fact that like whiteness and white women know how much they are like woven into racism from the very beginning and act like they don't know that through their tears, it's just like very maddening. And it's just like, it makes you like angry to the point like violence, because you like first of all, I'm annoyed that like you have the guts to even just like say this like so openly, like I know I can do this and like nothing will happen to me. But also the idea of like knowing that I could never ever do that again, like that jealousy, like it comes out. And not that I want to be absolved of like the things that I do, but it's just like the thought of like people know this is happening, like people know it's all like a scam and like a fake and a facade, and I'm still like blamed for stuff. So it's things like that. So I just wanted to write that for that reason.
And how is this, when you think about, okay, your parents, your children, you want to raise, you're trying to like create a better world. If you've got kids, you're thinking, I want them to grow up and be good, humans in the world, I guess, theoretically. And so how does teaching children that here's the key, not to like take responsibility, not to be a better person, not to, grow. Here's the key to never have to deal with anything.
Yeah, it's wild. Like the juxtaposition of like you're raised to like I'm raised on the other hand to like take on everything and take responsibility for things I didn't even do. But like a white girl's raised to like give it all away. Like I'm going to be free. But me, I'm going to carry everything, which is not like literally, but just like the ideology of like that strong Black woman trope. But yeah, it's just like wow to, it's just maddening and like wow to like know that like this stuff happens. And yeah.
Right. And how do you deal with it without? Yeah, I don't have the words really, you know, like, I mean, I'm staring at my ceiling, but they're also not up on top of my ceiling. So, I know it's kind of like a abrupt finish, like ending point, but we are actually like literally out of time. And I told Kendra before we began that I would speak at super high speed at the end, but that was when I thought that I would have even more time than I have right now. So I'm going to give some very abbreviated closing remarks. And I'm just going to say, Kendra, it was so awesome to have you. I'm so grateful that you came to visit with us 2 times, and it's been totally awesome to talk to you. I hope that I see you very soon in person.
Yes.
And I want to thank O and the library for all your work behind the scenes tonight and giving opening remarks, and also for just the library's awesome partnership has been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kendra, and thank you, Kyla.
And I'll just say for those people watching at home, please, 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 the best way you can support writers is by getting the books. And you can get Kendra's 2 books at your favorite independent bookseller or at the library's partner bookseller, Loyalty Books. And you can also take it out from the library. And I'm going to stop talking. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you so much, Kendra, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.